Welcome back to Life with the Boys. I'm Christian. This is my friends Jack and Brad. We're going to be talking about psychology today. Let's get started.
Alright, boys. So we're going to start off with the concept of nature versus nurture, which is essentially how much influence does nature have over nurture. So nature being your basically biologically the way you work, and like when you're born, how many things, like why do you live your life the way you do? Why do you think the way you do? Is that because of just your biology and your parents' genes and stuff like that? Or is it from nurture, which is like the way your parents raise you and the influence that other people have on you and the experiences that you go through, and the art, and like people try to figure out, and psychologists try to figure out which one plays more of a role than the other one, and is one like drastically higher than the other?
So we actually watched a movie on this, which I found very interesting in psych class. But that leads me with the question to start off with. What do you think really matters, nature or nurture? Do you know off the top of your head or no?
From what I'm aware of and from my experiences in my life, I would say that nurture has more of an experience, more of an effect on you than nature itself does, than our biology. But it's the way I'm thinking about it is, I have certain drives, like I need to eat, I need to drink water, stuff like that. That's just a part of me and a part of everyone, which is apparently it's essentially a huge thing in our lives. But if you think about the grand scheme of things, you have certain dreams and aspirations in your life and goals and stuff like that. I think that stuff is morally influenced by your life experiences, but at the same time, there's of course other things that prove otherwise that it doesn't. But from my experiences, that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. I would like to agree and say nurture, because when you're living your day-to-day life and the people who you're surrounded by, or like family or friends, influence how you act, and also religion and other things come in in part, kind of, because that's what you think and that's what you believe in, and that's what you that's what you act upon. You know what I'm saying? When you do something, it's kind of like whatever you believe in makes you have those actions, and the people who surround you and the people who influence you lead you to do some actions that you may have.
Yeah. I have a question. So would you say if you were born into a rich family, would that be nature or would that be nurture? Because when we think of nurture, we think of how the family is going to be treating the child, how the family is going to be raising the child. Are they going to get an adequate amount of love? Is the baby going to be held a lot? Is the baby going to be alone? And then when I compare that in my mind to if you're born into a rich family, you have a lot of objects, you have a lot of assets that a lot of people don't have access to, and that might is that nature?
I think no, because I think it depends on the individuals. You can have a rich family that have strict parents and make the kid work for success by themselves, or you can have parents who do everything for the kid and the kid doesn't do anything, and it's surrounded by all those objects, toys, and everything like that, and it thinks that the child probably acts if it's entitled and it deserves more or whatever. But if you have a family or people who are surrounding who are stricter and make you do more things, then it's completely different. It doesn't have to do with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I also find it interesting that through statistics, it's actually proven that, if you guys didn't know, it's actually proven that people who are born into rich families are more likely to, become rich themselves and follow in the footsteps of their parents. So that begs the question again, is it nature or is it nurture? Because some of these rich kids, like any situation, could be put into a family and just almost feel like they just are always going to end up with the same amount of wealth, and kind of the same kind of situation. And when we're looking at nature versus nurture, we're really looking at the success, I guess, it has over or the how much it's going to embody the person later on in life. So we look at the pros and the cons. Is it bad? Are we looking mostly money wise, how the child's going to end up after being raised, or how successful wise? So I just find it interesting that we're looking at, like, when it comes to nature versus nurture, we're looking at a balance of both how much money you have and how successful you are in your assets, your job, and all that, and then how charismatic you are and your mental capacity and how smart you are, and all those other factors. So there's a lot to really look into that.
Honestly, it's just like, I think it's just where you're raised and how the people raise you, and the people that surround you is the biggest impact on how you interact with everything else around you.
Yeah.
I think there's like so many different factors that play into like whether someone's raised in like a rich or a poor family, because I think, let's say someone is born into a rich family and like ever since they're younger they're taught about money and they're just educated better than, let's say, someone who grew up poor and is in the inner city or something like that. And there's like psychologists and people have said like that, when you're poor and you're trying to make it to being rich, it's so much harder than if you're born rich, exactly. Even if you have to work for your own money, just because of the way you're conditioned as a child. And that's not to say that if you're poor you can't get rich. It's just the odds and the statistics are a lot lower. But you see people all the time who people who are rappers or play sports or do all different types of things. They grew up poor, but now they've achieved wealth.
Yeah. So that kind of also dives into the question I was just thinking. Nature versus nurture, you could kind of relate that to unconscious of the human, like how the unconscious is going to be thinking depending on nature versus nurture. So if we're looking at nurture, it's like we're going to be looking at how the parents raised them, and their unconscious is going to be really almost focused around what they're taking away from the parents. Like, I know I myself had some pretty crazy dreams. If we're gonna go talk about the dream aspect of unconscious, and it, like, looking up and evaluating my own dreams, I could tell like there plays a major role in my family and how I've been raised. Because I have these, I might have a nightmare of something that my family, my fears of my dad, or a trip I took. And that pops up inside of my dreams. But then we look at the nature aspect of it too, and then I could have the same kind of dream of like my job and like where I'm working at the time, and I might have outside thoughts of that. So I don't know, I find that interesting.
We'll continue with dreams now, and then we'll dive more into the unconscious a little bit separately after. But that brings up the concept of why do dreams even exist and why do we have them?
Mm-hmm.
So you go to bed every night, and sometimes there's things that provoke a certain dream. Like you'll talk to somebody you haven't spoken to in a while, a certain day, and then you go to sleep the night and they'll be in the dream. You're like, okay, I guess it makes sense that they're in that dream. But then there's other people in there that you feel like you've never seen before. But the crazy thing is, every face you see in your dream is an actual person. Your brain doesn't make it up. It's like someone you could have just passed on the street one time and your brain remembered it, and now they're in your dream.
I have a question. When do you guys have dreams? Because when I look at the REM charts of like deep sleep, and when scientifically with what they have been able to look at a little bit with sleeping patterns, I really do think and believe in those charts, because I don't dream ever, and I don't remember my dreams unless I get enough sleep already, and I'm kind of tipping in that area of asleep and not asleep. But at the same time, that's where my most like the strongest dreams I have are.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that interesting. When do you guys have dreams?
Usually I don't like remember them every night, but usually every night I'll remember some aspect.
Oh, really?
But I definitely believe that I remember more of a dream when I sleep longer. Like if I get 7.5 hours of sleep, like I might get like a little glimpse when I wake up of something, but then it fades. But if I sleep for like 9 hours or something like that, then I'll remember a lot of it.
If you're extremely tired, is it like you actually still have those like even small dreams here or there, or is it just like you fall asleep and then you wake up and there's that blank point of time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's been points where it's been like in small aspects, but I think overall it's like one. I'll go to sleep and then I'll wake up like when my brain wakes me up, and I'll remember like that long one.
Usually, I remember my dreams, like right when I fall asleep. I'll remember the one that I have, and then I'll remember the one like right before I wake up. So it's like I don't know like what's like in the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I remember like the one like if I wait like when I wake up in the morning, I remember the first dream I had like before I went to bed, and then I remember the one that's like right before I wake up. Like you ever have those dreams like where you really want to go back?
Yeah.
Like so I'll have my dream, right? And it'll be going like so awesome, and then I'll be like I gotta get up, right? I'll be like, bro, just 5 more minutes, come on. And then I go back to bed, and it's like I want to go back to that dream, but I can't.
Have you ever been able to resume?
Yeah,
the dream?
I have. And it's like the best because then it just keeps on going, and then I sleep for like another hour.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's the best.
I actually have a couple of weird stories on when I was a kid about dreaming and kind of like a little similar aspect. I don't know exactly why, but when I was growing up, when I was a little child, I feel like I used to have more intense dreams, but also, I used to do this thing with my pillow, where I used to slam my head into the pillow, not slam my head, push my head into the
yeah,
pillow.
like sink it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to be able to see like stars moving.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But quite literally, I don't know, just almost an out of body experience as a little kid.
Yeah, when I was little, I used to have like crazy nightmares, and to get rid of them, I would pretend I was in like a blank slate of paper. So like I'd go to sleep, and then I'd think about like white, like just plain white, and then me just there in the whiteness, seeing nothing, and then I'd fall asleep, and then the rest of the night I wouldn't remember anything, because I just like try to avoid having like bad dreams, so I avoided having all dreams.
Did you guys have night terrors as kids?
Yeah, I had this really bad one where basically it was like, like the clown from It.
Yeah.
It was like humongous outside of my house, and it picked up my house, and then it puts its like eye in the window and says, "I'm gonna eat you," right? And I'm like literally like dying, like I'm like and then he like opened up my house like with his hands, and then just like took me and just ate me, and then I woke up.
Oh boy.
And I was scared, so scared, bro.
All right.
And then from there, I wasn't dreaming. Until now. I don't have night terrors anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, I used to wake up a little sweaty a couple of times.
I was sweaty, yeah.
But yeah. We could cycle back to another topic if you guys want.
Well, I don't know if I've ever had like a specific night terror. I mean, of course I've like woken up and had like a nightmare, and like I'll be sweating or something like that. But I had sleep paralysis once, like it was probably like 2 months ago by now or something like that. Have you ever had that or no?
I actually have. That's where it was quite freaky. I had one experience that I ever had almost kind of recently, maybe 2 years back. And it's where, for anyone who doesn't know what sleep paralysis is, it's where your brain is still asleep. The functions of your brain, of certain parts of your brain, are still basically turned off, but you're able to see, your eyes are open. That lobe is functioning, and you're awake. And the interesting thing about that is you're not able to move. Your brain isn't giving signals to the rest of your body to move around. So you are awake and you're unable to move, and you're kind of still waking up almost. And the story I have is I think I took a nap right after school, and when I was waking up, my vision was was like very dark in a way, I want to say. It was a lot of dark corners, if you could imagine looking at it on a TV screen. My vision, a lot of dark corners, kind of like faded. Everything was melatonin, and colors weren't bright. And I knew I was still waking up, but then I go to like, okay, my eyes are open. I'm gonna get out of bed. And then my brain, I kind of realized, wait, I can't get out of bed. I can't move. I'm frozen. And that happens for not 1 second, not 2 seconds, but like almost like 10, 20 seconds. And by that fifth second, a weird thing happened where you get that immediate sensation that someone else was in the room. That's what I had. An extreme sense of paranoia. So it felt like another person was in the room, and I can't really describe it 100%, but imagine like almost like you're trapped, and you can't really see anything, and it's an overwhelming, extreme sense that it is quite literally real that someone else is in the room, and I can't describe to you enough like how real it felt, even though there was nothing there. That kind of shows the power of the mind. But I had to sit through that, and as I woke up, my vision became, as I'm still, I'm still seeing everything. My vision became more, opened up, less dark, and I kind of like budged at one point, and then I was up. But definitely a very extreme, scary, interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean, mine was similar. But I actually, I don't. It was just like a dark figure that I saw moving towards me.
Really?
It probably the sleep paralysis probably lasts for like a minute straight of real time or something like that.
Really?
But with mine, it like transitioned. So I was in a dream. I was dreaming about like being at work or whatever, and it was just like a normal, weird, not really making sense of the real world type of dream. And then I walked into a room and I saw a guy in a hospital bed, and then everything went dark, and then everything went light up again, and I was in my room. And at this point, I thought I was awake, but then I couldn't move and stuff, and I could only see. And then
But you were awake, right? This isn't a dream still, or you were awake?
I couldn't tell you, but this is the sleep paralysis. And then after the sleep paralysis, it goes dark again, and I actually wake up, I guess. But my question is, and you probably don't have the answer, but is, when you're in that state of sleep paralysis, are you genuinely awake and some of your body processes just aren't working and you're like hallucinating, or is it like another aspect of the dream world that's like similar to lucid dreaming?
I 100%, from my experience, know that I was awake, and I guess in a way scientists couldn't explain it, mainly due to the lack of research on dreaming, as we all know from psych class. But from my perspective, I felt like I was awake because it was an exact, I had those functions of being awake. I could see my room, I saw my door. But that kind of goes to think and combat the idea of, even if your eyes are open and your mind is properly functioning, would that still be considered a dream since you're not awake?
Right. I mean, yeah.
I think I was awake. I think how it works is your brain isn't fully awake yet, and it's in a sense of fear, and that sense of that flight or fight response gets kicked in immediately. And when you're not able to fight, that's when the other triggers in your mind are going to be like, hey, listen, we got to do something else, and that's panic. And that's right next up on mine.
Yeah.
So I panicked, and I personally don't know, if you want to inform me, how hallucinations work, or, how you get that sense of something's there even though it's not. But that's what I experienced, and I definitely think that I was awake during that time. So
I mean,
it's very scary.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think I was too. It's just the reason I bring up the question is because it feels so real, and it's like it's real. But I've lucid dreamed before, and when you're lucid dreaming, it feels completely real too. So
Really?
it's like, I mean, we've already talked about this on the podcast, but I'll bring it up again. Lucid dreaming is when you're dreaming, and sometimes you're dreaming, sometimes you don't. But either way, everything feels completely real. You have all your five senses, and you are basically thinking like pretty normally. And so it's just this weird state of consciousness and this weird dream realm where you are able to just live out the dream and be conscious of everything like it's real and feel it, or you could make things up yourself and guide a dream into a certain direction.
The closest I've ever had to a what you're describing, a lucid dream, was more or less a dream that you could control.
Same. That's happened to me. Like, I've been able to control my
Yeah.
dreams, but not feel anything at all.
Exactly. So that's where I'm very interested that you have almost a sense that you're still like in your own body, or a sense of someone else's body, a sense at all. Because when I'm lucid dreaming, it's almost like I'm laying back and I got the TV going and I'm like, do a double backflip or make a cheeseburger, and then I see it. So it's a sense of that, like almost a different dimension where I'm kind of watching onto it rather than I'm in the dream itself, if that makes sense. So I find
Yeah,
that
like
interesting.
also like even like daydreaming, bro.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in class and like I'm not really that interested in the topic, and I'll start like dozing, and I'll then think about anything I want in my brain, you know, without like, it's like kind of like if you took like a screen and you just put it in the sky, like a TV in the sky, and I was just putting myself into that without like feeling it,
Yeah.
but like knowing, like still knowing my surroundings are there and being able to control that while being
makes me
having
think-
like my eyes open.
That makes me think I want to dive into another concept of the brain, motivation, in my opinion. If you guys want to talk about that, because not to sidetrack too fast off of dreams, we come back. But I used to have a crazy story I like to tell people about how I got my heart broken, and how that plays into motivation, and how you could really do anything with the power of the mind. And if you know anything about running, for anyone who likes to run, it's all a mental contest when it comes down. A lot of, if you hear people talk about, working out and any kind of motivational things, it's all in your head, and you could push yourself and you could push your body much further than you really think you can. And I like to tell is, I want to say maybe when I was in 8th grade, we've all had our first relationships growing up. We're not really sure what's going on, and, you want to make a girl happy, or you want to share time with someone, whatever, it could be anything. But for me, it was a girl, and long story short, I got broken up with, and that led into a little bit of depression. We could talk about that, but there's definitely severities of depression. I was sad. I don't know if you can call it depression, but I was sad. And that started leading me to work out. And within working out, during the summer, I want to say of almost like 2018, still relatively young, I pushed myself further than I could even describe to anyone. I would go and bike 2 miles to a bike trail where they had a airport. And so I'd bike 2 miles in 100-degree weather over the summer. And every single day, it was all consistency. It was hypnotic how consistent everything was. I would wake up, I would eat chicken, I would eat, foods I knew were really good for me. I would go for an extreme run. I would be running almost like record times. I'd be running 4-minute miles, 5-minute miles. Quite crazy and unimaginable to most people, even to myself still now. But I was able to unlock, in my opinion, at that time, the full power of my brain, and I was able to unlock my true potential with my whole body, because the motivation that I had going for me, all the receptors, all the dopamine, everything was coming out, and I was really pushing myself during these workouts. I was able to run ludicrous times, ludicrous speeds. I was flying. I was like a machine. After my 3-4 mile runs, I was cranking push-ups in 100-degree weather with sweatshirts on, and because I was burning all this fat. And it's just quite crazy to see the power of motivation. I don't know if you guys have a story like that to tell, but
Not a story like that to tell, but I can say that my motivation comes from helping other people.
yeah.
So instead of like me having your case of depression, it was kind of more like me doing things to help other people to help my mindset of motivation, like if like you literally, if you put your mind to anything, you can do literally anything you want. Like you have to like stop telling yourself that like you can't do something, because then if you keep on reminding yourself that you can't do something, you're not going to be able to do it. So like me going out there and talking to different people and public speaking and like just talking to different people and trying to help others, that got me to a place where I was like, I need to do stuff for myself as well, and I'm gonna motivate myself with the advice that I'm sharing out and I'm like doing. So like I started like boxing in my basement and like working out all the time when I was like in middle school, and then I started like going more to the gym, and I'm doing like the podcasts and stuff. I built my own TikTok now, and I'm just trying to be the best I possibly can, as well as helping other people, because that whole mix of that just makes me feel good and motivated.
Yeah.
I remember that when I suffered from depression, like getting myself out of it, kind of, I don't know what the spark was, but I feel like I was at a point where I wasn't as depressed anymore, but my life still felt like it sucked, and I had like no purpose. So I started like seeing like self-improvement stuff online.
So that actually that brings a bell. So you conditioned yourself to see those stuff online and lead you to do the same.
What do you mean?
I'm trying to link it up to conditioning and how we condition our bodies to make different decisions, like Freud's mousetrap and some of the experiments we see in psych class. How we've seen birds conditioned to play ping pong. That's pretty cool. They play ping pong. Whoever wins, you're gonna get a treat. You're gonna get a snack. I don't know about you. For me, I conditioned myself almost in an unconscious way. I've conditioned myself looking at, I didn't want to do drugs, and I didn't want to go down the wrong path that a lot of people do fall into. They condition themselves to others. They see others. They, that combines with everything about psychology too. Bystander effect. They feel like everyone's watching them, and they need to fit in, and they want to be accepted. And within trying to be accepted, you become invisible in a way. So a lot of people fall down that invisible path in life, and they condition themselves negatively, and they go down these wrong paths. They do drugs. They do all these things, and that causes them to, whenever they're upset, they go down that wrong path, rather than you condition yourself seeing, oh, motivational TikToks, I'm gonna work out, I want to be good, I want to be my own path in life. So
yeah, like for instance, for me, like I condition myself to the people like who surround me, and like I love like being around people who support me and people that like motivate me as well. So like for instance, I've been grown up in a family of like law enforcement and stuff like that. So like my dad like obviously has a load of experience on me, and he gives me a ton of advice. And like he tells me, you got to be a leader, can't be a follower. Don't listen. Like don't like. Obviously, it's like you can like listen to others and like have a good conversation with people, but like be yourself and just be the best you possibly can. And then him kind of like guiding me and mentoring me as a father figure of me to like look up to him and try to be like him basically. And then as well as having great friends like Brad and you, like having like saying all these things to make me like better, then like I follow the right path instead of looking at other people and like following what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I was gonna bring up that talking about this makes me really believe that I can't any longer say I can't say that it's nature or nurture. I really have to believe that it's a combination of both because everything really plays a role in the end and what how your brain's gonna function and it all combines into one. So
I think being happy is just key. If you love what you're doing, you stick to it, you do what you believe in, and you achieve your goals and dreams, and then anything's possible.
yeah.
You just gotta look up and say, "I got this." Just do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
I mean, now that you just said the nature nurture, just to make up like a tiny point or question that I have for myself is, for certain things, are you more prone to do certain things because your parents did them or because they believe a certain way thing or they lived their life a certain way? Like, for example, my dad was a drummer and I play drums now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started, was I more prone to be like a better drummer than somebody who has never played drums in their family? Or yeah, like that's my question.
Well, being raised with something, you have like more of an advantage than other people who don't like do those things. You know what I'm saying?
I wasn't raised that way. It's just I started playing on my own eventually.
Well, you knew that your dad was a drummer and your dad had the drums in the house, so it kind of like conditioned you to play as well, in a sense. Like when like my whole family, when everyone was younger, everyone played baseball and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I played baseball because I saw that everybody else was playing baseball, you know?
Right, but my point is like psychologically, was I more prone to do that, like
The
like
reason-
biologically, not conditionally.
Yeah, I don't think biologically, like,
I think that it could be both ways, and I'll give you an example for this because I'm actually the first person to pick up a guitar right here. In no way, no past family history has there been a famous songwriter, famous nothing. We have zero musical
you gonna be
talent.
famous? I hope so.
I hope so too. I hope so. But anyway, yeah, zero musical talent as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. And it comes down to really a 50-50. The reason I ended up going into music was it was my birthday. I was like, I want to learn a new skill. Long story short, Mom, I either want a skateboard or I want a guitar. We picked up the guitar. And I guess you could say I fell in love with it a little bit.
I would have picked the skateboard.
You picked the skateboard?
I love longboarding.
That's fair.
Shit's the best. Like, it's also really good. Like, it clears your mind. Like, I love just going to the beach, putting some headphones on,
Mhm.
going strolling down, or like even down the neighborhood when there's sunset.
Yeah.
That's the best. Just
anyway,
cruising on the longboard, bro.
To answer your question, regardless of whether or not, the ironic thing about it is, regardless of whether or not it's presented to you in a fashion that is there and accessible to you, you don't always take it as a person, and that merges with your own like your own mindset in a way, because as we're getting nurtured and we're formulating our own like ideas on what to believe and what to not, I feel like at one point in your life, at least for me, what I find so interesting is at a certain point in time, there's going to be a day where you don't listen to your parents, and when you almost combat and you kind of absorb everything in nature itself, and you're like, that doesn't seem right. What my parents are saying doesn't seem right 100%.
That's because everyone's like kind of curious,
Yeah.
and everybody wants to like it's great. Like, you want to find yourself, and you want to experiment, and you want to do different things, and kind of be a rebel, because like that's not what your parents like necessarily like.
That's not necessarily what I mean, because there's things that I know my parents are right with, but I don't always want to go down their path.
Well, yeah, because you want to explore and you want to do different things, and
Yeah.
you don't want to stick to like a routine or like what like you usually do, or you want to try something different, which is great.
Yeah. So, but anyway, to get back on track and finish this, my idea is, it didn't matter whether or not the guitar or whatever musical instrument was presented for me in the house already. It was kind of just, I wanted to do something new. I was curious, as you said, and I picked it up. And that kind of questions the idea of, if I was born and immediately handed a guitar, would I definitely be a good guitar player? Obviously, we know as time goes on, you're gonna get better at something, definitely, right? Obviously, but are you going to reach like the same potential, or
That
is
just it just
is
depends
that-
on your mindset. It depends on what you want to
Not
do.
necessarily. That's there's giftedness in a way. There's
Yeah.
there's people that are born gifted, and there's people that are born not as gifted. There's some unbelievable guitar players after 3 years, and it is extremely rare. But that kind of throws back to the idea of even a regular person, or someone who isn't profoundly gifted at playing an instrument. Can I reach the same level of proficiency as someone who's just naturally gifted, regardless if whether or not they picked up a guitar at some point in their life? It begs the question: is it nature or is it nurture? Again,
Yeah.
does it actually matter if my parents are like, here's a guitar, or is it going to be all up to me and what I've been already given at birth?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do know from things I've seen is that if you're handed if you're, I don't want to say the word forced, but if your parents kind of make you play an instrument from when you're like 2 years old and then onward, like if they make you do it every day and do certain things, when you're younger, you're so much. I don't want to say you're so much more. Yeah, definitely.
Valuable.
But and I don't want to say that you're more. Well, in a sense, you are more creative when you're younger than when you are now, but also that I don't want to take that away from. I don't want to say that in the sense that people our age can't be creative, but when you're younger, you're more in the creative space overall than when you are now, because now we get into routines. We have to do certain things because of society and the way it's set up and stuff like that. But I've seen drummers, like there was this kid I saw online. I think he's like 6 years old or something, and the kid's like 5-10 times my skill level, and he's so much younger than me. So
Yeah.
I think it would, like you said, you're a lot more malleable when you're younger. And what?
Do you believe in the quote, give me a dozen healthy babies and I will make them into lawyers, doctors, and a teacher? Do you believe in that? Do you think that, especially we're talking about a psychologist who said that, do you believe that that's true? Do you believe that, especially with the knowledge the psychologist has and what he's doing, do you believe that regardless, you can take a baby and you can make them into whatever you want?
I think in most cases you can when they're really young, because you can condition them to for them to believe that they need to be a certain thing. Like you condition them because you want them to be a nurse or something,
Do you
and then
think
they grow
they're
up.
guaranteed to like that though too?
The thing is, so I think the question comes up where when they start to grow up and they start to tell everyone, oh yeah, I want to be a nurse, blah 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 blah. Do they truly believe that? Is that in their like soul, their purpose, or do they only believe that and it's an illusion because someone else conditioned them to feel that way? And do we have our things that we believe that are our purpose and the dreams that we follow, that we want to follow or believe in? Is that a result of something? Again, is that a result of something natural, that we're just born to pick up the guitar or something a certain way, and you either pick up the guitar and you reach that potential, or you go throughout your life and you never pick up the guitar? Or is it as a result of conditioning when we're younger to be a certain way? Because there's people who definitely, someone wants them to be a nurse and they believe they want to be a nurse, but then once they reach like 20, they're like, oh, I don't really like this anymore, and then they find something else, and then maybe that other thing is the thing that they were truly passionate about. But I could just keep going.
It's really, I don't know. It's really like we don't know what is determined, and we don't know what is even causing, a sense of direction in life, and what, why do people have the motivation to do what they want to do in the first place? I thought I wanted to help people, and I think everyone does. Everyone has a natural sense of wanting to help people, but at the same time, you want to have a security within yourself, and you want to be able to worry about yourself and maybe one other person in this life. So it really questions and boggles the mind about I'm born. My parents treated me this way. They did a good or bad job. However, whatever parenting style they were, if they had an aggressive parenting style and they're authoritarian and they're strict, or if they were, more lenient and, they didn't really parent at all, regardless, we don't know. I feel like regardless, there's a sense of nature that's playing a role in, hey, I want to do this regardless of what you say, or regardless of how, a parent raised. So that makes me think even more. I want to say now that nature has to play a role within leading and guiding who you want to become later on in the future, but nurture plays the ultimate role in um, kind of, the unconscious and maybe, well, obviously they both play a part, but nature has a little bit of an effect more on, deep down what you really want to kind of do, because let's say you were born, you never had a parent figure around, you can, raise yourself and go through the loops of life alone, and be a great person and be a happy person, or you could be a hateful person,
Yeah.
an evil person. So it really, like, you see these people not nurtured at all, and they're doing fine now. And you see people that are not nurtured at all and are evil now and want to hurt and kill people and do terrible things in life. So there's that empty space between really knowing that makes me want to say it's nature playing its role. It's how the brain was originally created and how it developed. It's not like you're gonna be living on your own and one day be like, hey, I'm gonna be a hateful person now because my parents left me, or hey, I'm gonna be a great person now because I'm all about myself and I want to do better. So there's definitely that aspect. You want to dive into another topic?
I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into the unconscious aspect of some things, and so I remember doing research on this a long time ago. So I'm not gonna say that
Still stands.
it still stands. Just I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
dig deep in my mind to get everything correct.
Gotcha.
So I believe it's until you're the age of 7. When you're younger than 7, you're usually more creative, just because you're a kid and you're curious about everything, and your brain is actually in a different brainwave state manually. Like most of the time, it's a different brain state before you're 7 than to when you are now, and that age from when you're born to when you're 7 is essentially the conditioning period. So you observe everything and you're curious about everything, and you adapt certain beliefs and mindsets on things and different knowledge and different feelings and everything in that age. And then that essentially really has a huge role into molding you into the person you are after age 7 throughout the rest of your life. Of course, on top of your experiences and everything else that happens after that. But it's like you're conditioned till you're age 7, and then all of that affects the rest of your life. And most of the time, nobody even knows what that information is that you're conditioned to, but then you act a certain way. So like some people can maybe be in a relationship at our age and treat them badly but believe it's good, and they don't know why, because they were conditioned from a certain way because their parents treated them a certain way, and then that results in them treating their girlfriend or boyfriend in a certain way, but they're not actually aware of why they do it. And so so after learning about this information, I figured in my own life, and I think for everyone, it's important to try to think about how you were raised, and from that age 0 to 7, and then if you're having a huge issue or trying to make a decision in your life now, what essentially shaped you and formed you into the way you think now and the decisions you make now. So I try to look back on my past and think, okay, if I have an issue with something now, I'm trying to solve this, or I think about something a certain way. Why do I think about it this way? Is it a result of something that I was conditioned to do, or is it something else?
I really don't know, but I do think that there's really those stages, as you were saying, 7 years old, that's the cutoff. There's, you learn your motor skills around 1 to 2. You learn these other, these other skills. So I definitely understand, like, kind of where that time to be, malleable, and that time to be kind of understanding what's going on around you, and how you're being influenced. But I'm not too sure about what's gonna be that final result.
Right. But the concept is just crazy that you're conditioned a certain way, and then most of us aren't even. It's buried in your unconscious and your subconscious, and you're not even aware.
Can you explain the difference between unconscious and then subconscious?
Okay. I'm trying to. I have to think about this because I haven't looked at it in a while.
Well, we know unconscious is basically almost same with dreams, if you want to look at it that way. It's symbolic of what you're experiencing, and if you look at it as an iceberg, a very common maybe image you might have seen, you have all, the conscience is just the tip of the iceberg, you see, and then you have the unconscious below the water level that nobody sees, that has dreams in it, that has what you're conditioned to and what you see as a kid, and all these different things are playing a major role in your life. So we know that's the unconscious, and then maybe I don't know if you know.
Some people describe subconscious differently. Like in psychology, they say it differently than a little bit than somebody who's in a different field or something and talks about that information. Yeah. But I mean, I guess subconscious is kind of like.
Is it the same thing?
It's I mean, essentially. Yeah. But I mean, some people can describe it as it's subconscious, so it's a little bit below consciousness. So it's stuff that's like a little bit buried under there, but it's easier to dig up and figure it out. And then unconscious is like stuff that you would probably never figure out, but it's possible to figure stuff out, and then you bring that to the conscious aspect of everything. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's like the thing of analyzing your past and the way you were growing up, is taking that unconscious information that influences your life and bringing it to consciousness so that you're aware of why you act the way you do and stuff like that. And so, I mean, and all that is a learning process. Like, you do that because, not necessarily because you've done something wrong, but if you do something wrong, you can use it and figure out stuff as to why you did that wrong and then improve on it. Or even if you think you're doing it in a good way, you understand why.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. I have an idea, because Jack's looking really bored right now, and hopefully everyone's enjoying the podcast. Let's do some psych-related stories, and I want to lead the foot on how poor my motor skills are at growing up, because I have some pretty crazy stories on just one too many trees I might have ran into, including some cement walls that I'll tell you about. But long story, let's make a story out of it. Growing up, I had a very intriguing, sense of direction, one could say. You call my name. I used to, hear stories that when I was, 8 years old, and by this time I'm supposed to be completely, capable of, there's an object in front of me, there's an object behind the piece of glass. My sense of, direction and maybe just not being the smartest, I guess. My mom would say she always called my name, and I would be looking around like an idiot. She's standing right in front of me, quite literally right in front of me. I could be laying on the ground or just standing up, however tall I was back then, maybe like 3-4 feet tall. Right in front of me, and I would not know where she was, and I'd be calling out her name. I got lost a lot as a kid. Going to Toys R Us wasn't too fun because there were maybe 3 or 4 times when I was screaming my mom's name, and some random lady would have to grab me and bring me to the front desk, and they'd call my name on the loudspeaker. They'd be like, Cecilia, my mom's name, or whatever, my dad's name, to please come up to the front aisle 8. We found your kid. Quite literally. And you'd just hear my mom screaming, ah! You'd hear my mom screaming, like, where is she? And I'd be in the cashier area of the mall holding me, like surrounding me, making sure I'm okay. I have stories of, my backyard. As a little kid, there was this quite large retaining wall made out of complete cement. And I'd be running. I'd be like, hey, let's play some ball. Let's throw the ball around. And I wouldn't understand really how much space is in front of me, so I'd be running. I'd have my hands out, and quite literally slammed my face and smashed it into the retaining wall. So.
Yeah, my brother was like that too when he was
Really?
little. One time we went to the mall. It was me, my cousins, and my grandpa. And my mom goes, "Make sure you watch Max. No matter what, you better look out for him because he's always trying to get lost." And so we're all getting ice cream, and we're all sitting there, and all of a sudden we're like, "Where's Max?"
Mm-hmm.
And we're running around, and we go to security. Can you find one of the kid, our kid? And they go, yeah. So they put on like the cameras, and you see him just like he's like 6 years old or something. And he's like 3 foot, 4 foot tall, and he was just riding the escalator up. He was chilling. He was just vibing. Like he had the ice cream in his mouth, and he was like smiling, and he was just in the middle of like random people. And then we finally got him, but it was really funny. You can just see his little head popping out of the escalator.
Yeah. I had this one story where it's kind of winter. I actually wrote this was my college essay, believe it or not. I wrote a college essay on this story. I'll do a shorter version of it, but basically it is snowy. I'm still a little kid. I need my mom to put on my boots. I need, I'm not that strong, I'm a newbie. I'm a newbie at sledding. I'm a newbie at it. And we had a big hill, a foresty hill. There's some trees, there's some obstacles going on in my backyard. But I was up for the challenge, and I knew I wanted to duck and weave through the bushes during that winter. So I hop outside. I got my purple sled. I got my boots on, my orange boots, I remember distinctly. And I, go a couple times, not all the way down the mound, not all the way down the little hill that I thought was a giant mound at the time. But, I was sledding, and I actually didn't know that there's no way to kind of like stop at the time. There's no like stop feature going on with the sleds. So I slam through a dead tree and get my head stuck in a tree trunk.
That's crazy. One time I went to the Freehold Mall, and they had like sledding down like this one hill over there, and there was this lake covered in like not a lake, like a little pond area covered in ice. And everyone thought it was cool to go down the huge hill and then slide on the ice. And then I was on top of the hill, and I remember walking up, and there's these kids. The ice broke, and they fell in the water, and the people had to like drag them out.
What about you, Brad? Any stories?
I don't know about stories like that. I remember having like a dream or something of me like getting back to. So I think in reality what happened is my parents were out one day when I was really young, and then we came back, and there was a car flipped over on our lawn, and then like the cops came and stuff.
Really?
But I remember vividly. It must have happened in a dream, or I just imagined it as a kid, and it's kind of like molded with like my memory in a sense, that I was walking on the sidewalk and a car flipped over me and went onto the lawn. So I think when I was a kid, I kind of like imagined that, and I would actually like tell people that that's what happened, but I I could be wrong, but I don't think I was doing it in a way to lie to people. I think for some reason I genuinely believe that's that's what happened, which is really weird. But then also when I was younger, I think I was more prone. Like some people are like, I don't want to say conditioned, but some people are conditioned. But some people think for themselves more in general at any age, and some people like conform more. I think the majority of people our age and up are a little bit down and up for the rest of their lives, usually conform to society standards and everything else, and they don't really do what they truly want to do. But I think when I was in like 4th or 5th grade, I was more prone to conform rather than think for myself, and that led me to like do certain things with like my friends and stuff like that and want to fit in and stuff like that. And then like over time, after going through some stuff, like my mindset changed and I became more of like a free thinker, I suppose. But then that leads me into like the topic of conformity and how most of us conform, and we have certain like social standards and stuff. Like you don't do a certain thing in public because you think people will look at you and stuff. And so there's some things that you can do in public that people will look at you for and judge you for. But then also the topic of caring about what other people think comes up. And I've said this many times before, but like when you do something like you think is stupid in public that you believe that people are judging you for, everyone's so caught up in their own heads and nobody really gives a shit what you're doing.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to bring up it was this famous experiment. I don't remember who it was by or if it was a psychologist or not, but it's a video in black and white, and it's this study on conformity. Mm-hmm. So they had actors go into an elevator, right? And it was at like some huge like office building or work building or whatever. So they have people who are like actors go into the elevator and they stand like in a weird way. So like the elevator door will be here, so like you usually walk in and then you like turn around and you just face the door and wait till you get out. But people are the actors are facing the doors here and they're facing this way.
Yeah.
Or they're facing like sideways, or like throughout the trip they move around and change positions. Mm-hmm. And so they have like 4 or 5 people in there who are actors, and then the subjects or whatever, like the people that actually work there and are just taking their normal elevator that they take to work every day. Yeah. They walk in there and then some of them instantly face the wrong way that they were facing, or they walk in, they face the right way, and then like a second later they change and they face the other way that everyone else is.
So what did most people do?
What?
Did most people conform to the actors, or did most people stay facing the right way?
It took a few more seconds for some than others, but every single one of them conformed.
Really?
Because if you're in the elevator full of like 5 people that are facing the wrong way and you're the only one facing that way, I mean most of the time you're gonna think like, oh, like am I like this is weird, like I just want to. You feel like you stand out and you're uncomfortable, and most people are uncomfortable with standing out and not doing everything else that someone else is doing.
That makes me ring a bell for the idea and the concept of illusions, because inside of psych we did a lot of different, we looked at a lot of illusions. We looked at, the black images of what do you see? Do you see a bunny, or do you see the ink blobs? We did that. We did, you see one thing through your left eye, you see more. You'll see one thing, shapes, and then through one eye, and then you'll see colors through another. So there's a lot of different illusions going on, and that the mind is probably being triggered when that kind of like, false sense of positioning going on, even though it is mostly conformity, but there's a little bit of an illusion that's going on.
That also reminds me of what we learned in psychology, and I learned in criminology as well. Mm-hmm. It was like, first the psychology side was when those people, they were like adding things up, and people said like what number they thought it was, and then the people that were not the actors agreed with the people who were actors. That's like what you're basically saying with the elevator. And then also people kind of like following what other people do is like kind of, I learned in criminology, the bystander effect. So basically like someone's like someone was like homeless or something like that, and or like someone like got like something like with like the buildings. Do you remember when someone like died on the floor below and like people were like walking by?
The case was that she got murdered. She got like stabbed or something, and then the killer actually left, and she was screaming like the first time, but she wasn't dead yet, and then the killer actually left and then came back to actually kill her. And the entire time, like, it was in like the city or something, so there were office buildings or just people's apartments everywhere, and people heard the screaming and stuff like that. But since there's hundreds of apartment buildings, everyone just assumed that someone else called the cops, because you hear someone screaming and you're like, there's so many people around here, someone else has to call the cops, but you don't think that that's exactly what everyone else is thinking. So long story short, nobody ended up calling the cops, and then she fucking died.
Yeah, they were like saying something about like and then there was another thing where like there was a homeless guy, and everyone just kept on walking by, and no one was like giving any money or whatever, and like just following everybody else, not doing anything about it. So like people just following other people because like that they think that's right. So yeah.
Yeah, and if there were people walking by, and then one person or a few people gave to the homeless person, then maybe people who are watching them give, they are more prone to then give.
There's also studies on wrapping everything up. There's also studies on children are more likely, homeless children are more likely to receive cash from people walking on the streets than if it's actually middle-aged men are least likely to be receiving tips, because technically they're supposed to be, you look at my way of looking at it and reasoning with the studies is middle-aged men are, they're supposed to have their things together, and older men also receive a little bit more tips, but children receive the most, then older, and then middle-aged. So it's kind of that flip-flop on, there's a lot of stereotypes playing at hand, and where you should be in life, and what's everyone's accustomed to seeing that's playing a role in even like this, something small like, do I give them a quarter?
Yeah,
or,
that's true, because you remember when we were in Florida and we were driving down to the beach, and there's a bunch of homeless people. Like, you'll stop at a light, and every few lights there's a homeless person, right? But so you'll just see like a middle-aged or an older guy who's homeless, whatever, and you don't feel as like sympathetic for someone if you saw like a kid or something. Then we pull up to a light, and there's a guy holding a sign saying that his family needs to eat and stuff like that, and he actually has his wife and his two like 3-year-old kids right next to the road. So I think most people feel more prone to give to someone like that when it's like an entire family, whereas if it's just one guy. And so I slipped the guy. It was like a 10 or a 20, I don't remember what it was, but like me personally, I felt like more, and it's kind of fucked up in a sense that but it's not in a sense. So of course,
we
it's
resonate
good
more with
a family and younger people more than someone who's older and stuff, because the stereotype is like, if it's an older middle-aged guy, you just assume like it's because he's done drugs or something, bullshit like that, but it's not always true.
We're really accustomed to what's going on, and that first initial reaction when we see someone's age, when we grasp onto whatever reality we can make of them. And you're immediately accustomed to making these split, just automatic decisions, and that's why I really want to stress that it's an automatic thing. That I'm going to look at you, I'm going to see that you have blonde hair, I'm going to see if you're stronger, if you're weaker, I'm going to see if you're taller, if you're shorter, and I'm going to evaluate and form so many different unconscious decisions and ideas. Do I want to talk to this person? Do I not want to talk to this person? Is this someone I might want to speak to? Is this someone I might want to avoid? Do I immediately not like them as much? And even if you completely reduce and eliminate all kind of judging and immediate guessing from that person and what you expect from them, it's gonna come out eventually in a sense from your unconscious. It's gonna come out eventually, and you're gonna be more determined. You're gonna be almost pushing your body towards, I don't really like this person or whatever.
Yeah, it's like the worst like quality, but you know that everybody does it. Like, even if they say they don't, they do. All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up.
I'll do an outro.
You wanna do an outro?
I'll try.
But I really enjoyed this, and I hope you guys enjoyed this too. And yeah, so some slow outro music.
Goodbye. We are done with this